Tonight, the intense search for 3 grizzly bears which attacked a group of BC school children.
This is probably the most dangerous thing that conservation officers do.
Tracking the mother and her cubs that left 4 seriously wounded. And the locals who say grizzlies are menacing their homes. Mark Carney is in no hurry to speak to Donald Trump.
I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now.
But he is launching trade talks with India. And Black Friday deals days, even weeks before the big day.
We started off on November 3rd, just to kind of get them in a little bit earlier.
Why the discounts are deeper and earlier than ever before.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hennemensing.
A remote community on BC's Central Coast remains on edge tonight. 3 grizzly bears that attacked a group of school kids on a field trip are still on the loose. An urgent search to capture them underway. 3 students and 1 adult are still in hospital with serious injuries as conservation officers search the area near Bella Coola. They now believe it was likely a mother bear and her 2 cubs involved in the attack that happened Thursday afternoon as the school group stopped for lunch on a trail. Yasmin Hanea is in Bella Coola tonight with the latest on the search for the bears and a community trying to heal.
From the air and on the ground, an intense search for 3 grizzly bears following Thursday's shocking attack on a group of BC school children.
Speaking from experience, this is probably the most dangerous thing that conservation officers do, especially dealing with family units with sows.
After speaking to witnesses, officials now say it was likely a mother grizzly bear with 2 cubs who attacked about 20 elementary school students and teachers on a field trip in Bella Coola, a remote area on BC's Central Coast. Crews are now trying to track and capture the bears.
A lot of work goes into these, and these can be lengthy. The bears don't necessarily cooperate, but we're doing everything we can.
11 people were hurt in the attack. 3 students and 1 adult are still in hospital with major injuries. They're all part of an independent school run by the Newhalk Nation. Teachers being hailed as heroes for fighting off the bear using bear spray and bear banger. And while that likely saved lives, the community says it's going to be a long road to recovery.
Not only physically, but mentally. You know, and the nation's just standing behind them, and that they're in our thoughts and prayers.
Conservation officers say it's extremely rare for a grizzly to attack such a large group, but longtime residents in neighboring communities say they've seen more bears ransacking homes and vehicles. This is what a grizzly did to just 1 home in the Bella Coola Valley, terrifying for residents.
Can't sleep at night, thinking he's coming back. They will come back.
While people may be familiar with the area, officials are urging residents to stay inside, away from the attack zone, and to not go looking for the bears themselves.
And Yasmin, searching for grizzlies in this remote, rugged area would be extremely difficult.
Yes, conservation officers are using an RCMP helicopter with thermal imaging to spot any bears. Any bears that they do capture will undergo DNA testing to confirm whether they're the ones involved. And they haven't decided whether the bear or bears will be killed, but they do say any grizzlies caught and ruled out will likely be relocated.
Yasmin Hanea reporting from Bella Coola, British Columbia tonight. Now to the G20 summit in South Africa, which concluded the same way it began, under the shadow of an unusual U.S. boycott.
Scoville formally closes this summit and now moves on to the next president of the G20, which is the United States.
Without mentioning the boycott, South Africa's president then brought down the gavel, which would normally be handed over to the U.S. leader. But Donald Trump wasn't there, citing unsubstantiated claims that South Africa's government was persecuting the country's white Afrikaner minority. Without U.S. involvement, the G20 issued a joint declaration emphasizing the need to tackle climate change and promote gender equality. And as Ashley Burke shows us, contact with Trump doesn't seem to be a big concern for Prime Minister Mark Carney.
This G20 summit with leaders representing much of the world, one-stop shopping for Prime Minister Mark Carney, to try to land deals on the sidelines and diversify trade away from the U.S.
Canada and South Africa have also just agreed to launch discussions on a new foreign investment protection agreement.
Carney also met with India's Prime Minister. The two leaders agreed to launch talks toward a new trade deal.
We don't have a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with India. The ability to have more effective trade with them, to scale that trade with them, would be greatly helped by that.
Carney says he's working to double non-U.S. exports in the next decade, but he's also facing questions about trade partners like India, which the RCMP has accused of being involved in homicides, extortion, and threats on Canadian soil, a claim India denies.
We have to remain vigilant. We are vigilant.
Carney says a trade deal isn't an endorsement of everything a country does, adding his plan is tiered. India is part of an expansion in Asia. But asked if he's deprioritizing Africa, he said the continent's not at the top of his list.
Yes, Africa is part. Is it the first thing we worked on in terms of priorities? No.
Some say Carney is losing sight of major transformations taking place in Africa.
It's quite mind-boggling that we see this growth in mining. We see this growth in trade. For example, our trade has increased by 30% over the past 5 years, and yet we seem not to see the opportunities that the continent presents to Canada. As for Donald Trump, who boycotted this summit, Carney seemed frustrated by questions about his U.S. counterpart.
Last time you spoke to Trump, sorry?
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now.
Carney said he's been busy and it's up to Trump to decide when they resume trade talks, but did suggest they could speak in the next 2 weeks. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Johannesburg.
For the first time in more than 5 months, Israel bombed the Lebanese capital, announcing it assassinated Hezbollah's chief of staff. Health officials say 5 people were killed and dozens more were injured in the strike. Israeli military released video showing the explosion in Beirut's southern suburbs. The target was appointed Hezbollah's chief of staff after last year's war with Israel ended with the militant group in disarray. Despite a ceasefire, Israel has continued with strikes in Lebanon. It says it's in response to Hezbollah's efforts to rebuild. After intensive talks, delegations from Washington and Kyiv now say they're moving toward a proposal Ukraine can work with to relaunch a peace process with Russia. As Michelle Song explains, it's quite a journey from where the talks began with a leaked draft from the U.S. that some described as a wish list from Moscow.
Emerging from negotiations in Geneva, Kiev's envoy and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio seemed optimistic about a deal to end the war in Ukraine.
Today was the best day we have had in our entire 10 months of working on these issues.
Ukraine now getting its input into the 28-point U.S. peace plan that was leaked to the press days ago and raised alarm bells with Kiev and its allies. The proposal included several Ukrainian concessions. Ukraine would cede territory including Luhansk, Donetsk, and more, and limit the size of its armed forces, and not join NATO or allow NATO to station forces on its soil.
It's very, very difficult for the Zelensky government or any Ukrainian leadership, for that matter, to agree even in part to this agreement. This would be game over for Ukraine as we know it as a sovereign nation.
As Russia continues to batter Ukrainian cities, its initial response to the plan was positive. But some U.S. senators claim Rubio told them the plan came from Moscow.
According to Secretary Rubio, is not the administration's position. It is essentially the wish list of the Russians.
Something Rubio later denied, insisting it was a U.S. proposal. President Donald Trump gave Kiev a deadline of Thursday, later posting, "Ukraine leadership has expressed zero gratitude for our efforts." But after the Geneva talks, the Ukrainian president thanked Trump and said that there are signs the U.S. president is listening to Kiev's concerns. For many living through the war, the peace plan so far inspires more fear than hope. If this plan is adopted, says this woman from Kiev, I'll flee with my children. In a joint statement, the U.S. and Ukraine delegations said the talks have already led to an updated draft of the peace plan, with final decisions to be made by the U.S. and Ukrainian presidents. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
In Nigeria, 50 students have been reunited with their parents tonight. They were among 300 kidnapped from a Catholic school.
Everybody's so scared, even to sleep. If you are sleeping, I don't think people are sleeping with their eyes closed.
On Friday, armed bandits took the students and 12 teachers. No word on how the students escaped or where the others are. It's the third case of kidnapping in the country within the past week alone, including 25 girls taken from another school. Dozens have since been ordered closed, including this one, where parents arrived to pick up their kids. In the U.S. tonight, high-profile Democrats say serious threats against them have escalated sharply after Donald Trump accused them of seditious behavior. Katie Simpson now with the heightened rhetoric and the calls for calm.
U.S. President Donald Trump's attacks on his critics are having real-time, real-world consequences, according to those on the receiving end.
And because of what he says, there is now an increased threats against us.
We're going to take these seriously, but it's very disturbing stuff.
Democrats who appeared in this controversial video have been targeted by Trump for days now. He's angry about their message to U.S. troops.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
This post, calling it seditious behavior punishable by death, among those prompting threats, Democrats say.
When you have the President of the United States threatening to execute and to hang and to arrest using this rhetoric, people listen to it.
His words carry tremendous weight, more so than anybody else in the country, and he should be aware of that.
The White House later clarified the president was not threatening death. His team defending him as they try to move past the criticism.
You're probably going to say, oh, like off the rails representatives have gotten death threats. Well, what about the 2.1 million service members? They have put their lives at risk. There is one commander in chief.
These new tensions are sparking renewed calls for calm.
The idea that calling your opponents traitors and then specifically saying that it warrants the death penalty is reckless, inappropriate, irresponsible.
The president's attacks are too much to bear for Marjorie Taylor Greene, his one-time ally, now critic.
I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better.
After Trump turned on her, she said she's quitting Congress, which to some Democrats regularly targeted by Trump is downright laughable.
You know what? Honestly, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You're on the other side of the president for 1 week and you can't take the heat. Imagine what it is to sit in my shoes.
Some of the Democrats that Trump is attacking say they had sort of hoped he might ease up because of the recent surge in political violence and since there were 2 attempts on his own life. But history has shown that's not Trump's style.
And Katie, Trump continues to lash out on social media.
Yeah, he's amplified his attacks on Truth Social. For example, reposting a talk show host who suggests the Democrats' video may be punishable by law and repeatedly posting about jailing the lawmakers.
Katie Simpson in Washington, thank you. A second person has died after a train hit a group of 3 people near Montreal. Just after 3 a.m. Saturday morning, police say 3 men tried to cross the tracks despite the train's arrival at a nearby station. The death of a 19-year-old was confirmed on scene. A 22-year-old died today in hospital from his injuries. The train doesn't carry passengers at night, but does run on the tracks for testing. Another Canadian accused of being an accomplice of alleged drug lord Ryan Wedding is awaiting extradition to the United States. The FBI says Rashid Pasqua Hossein was arrested Friday by RCMP. He went by the alias J.P. Morgan and faces charges related to cocaine trafficking and money laundering. 7 other Canadians have been arrested for alleged connections to Wedding, the former Olympic snowboarder believed to be hiding in Mexico. Canada's Prime Minister says discussions are ongoing over a potential new oil pipeline from Alberta to BC. It's Mark Carney's first comment since news broke a pipeline would form part of a deal expected this week between Ottawa and Alberta. As JP Tasker explains, the idea is already seeing pushback.
On a trip abroad, the Prime Minister speaking for the first time about negotiations at home for a new oil pipeline to northwest BC.
Those discussions are ongoing. They have been constructive. There is a prospect of an agreement. It's not yet finalized.
A source tells CBC News that agreement on Alberta's energy future is expected to be signed on Thursday, and that Mark Carney is open to approving a pipeline that carries crude oil to the BC coast, then on to points in Asia. The federal government is also weighing exemptions to the Trudeau-era BC oil tanker ban that blocks ships from carrying that product.
It just makes no sense to me that we're not at the table.
All of this is news to the BC Premier. David Eby says he's been left out of talks on a project that could run right through his province.
This project that just has no economic sense to it and is not being advanced by anyone other than a politician that, frankly, is in political trouble at home.
That's a shot at Smith, who is urging naysayers to get out of the way.
A lot of people wrap themselves in the flag talking about how much they support Canada and want to work together. And then when it comes right down to it, not everybody lives up to that commitment.
Some BC First Nations are also diametrically opposed, fearful a potential oil spill could ruin their pristine part of the province.
This is our home. We rely upon a healthy ocean to sustain our way of life, and adding oil tankers to this is just not something that we can support.
Still, Alberta's former premier says the risk is worth it, especially with Canada's economy under threat.
That would be generating something in the range of $25 billion of additional value. With the big trade challenges coming from south of the border, I think we have to do things like this.
If Ottawa gives this pipeline the green light, it would be another example of the Prime Minister doing a 180 on his predecessor's policies. Justin Trudeau pushed through the tanker ban and proposed an emissions cap on the oil and gas sector. Carney seems determined to go in a different direction.
And what about the Liberal caucus? Do they support this project?
Some Liberal MPs are skittish about building a new oil pipeline, telling us they want to see Indigenous buy-in and an agreement with BC before anything goes ahead. Others are leery of the possible political consequences, even as polls suggest a majority of British Columbians support a pipeline like this one. Ian?
JP Tasker in Ottawa. A Booking.com customer is calling out the site after her reservation was canceled and the rate nearly quadrupled.
That was just like so outstandingly outrageous that I almost couldn't believe it.
Go public on why using third-party sites comes with a risk. Black Friday sales are popping up early and often.
We're cutting our margins pretty deep on that one.
How businesses, big and small, are trying to stand out. And a party in the produce aisle.
Somebody was singing karaoke. A few minutes later, there were Zumba dances.
We're back into a stunning view of the northern lights captured from the International Space Station. Scientists say these light shows are happening more often because of what's called a solar maximum, the highest rate of solar activity during the sun's 11-year cycle. An Ontario woman is sounding the alarm about the fine print that let a major travel site cancel her confirmed reservation and offer the same booking back for thousands more. As Go Public's Rosa Marcatelli reports, one expert says the case exposes troubling gaps in traveler protection.
The early bird gets the worm.
When Erica Mann booked a hotel for the 2026 Montreal Grand Prix, she thought her family's accommodations were locked in. Race organizers hadn't confirmed the exact dates, so she played it safe, booking the same 4-bedroom unit for 2 possible weekends in May, both with free cancellation.
I was super excited and jumped right on it.
After the official dates were set, she canceled the extra booking, exactly as Booking.com allows. But weeks later, her confirmed $4,300 reservation, that's the regular rate for that room, was gone. The website told her the hotel she booked reported a rate error, so she could either cancel for a refund or, get this, pay more than $17,000 for the same unit on the same dates. When she refused, Booking.com canceled it anyway. By that time, hotel prices were rising fast.
That was just like so outstandingly outrageous that I almost couldn't couldn't believe it.
The hotel says that pricing error on Booking.com briefly impacted 2 units on the property. One of them is the one Erica Mann booked. She tried repeatedly to get the website and the hotel to honor that confirmed booking, but neither would, pointing to a Booking.com rule that says if they decide there's a problem with the price, they can cancel.
Highly unfair.
It shows the power imbalance between travelers and booking platforms, says this expert, especially since many booking sites have similar fine print.
Our consumer protection laws are not great.
Booking.com is one of the biggest online travel agencies out there. The company told GoPublic our procedures do allow for cancellations in limited circumstances where a genuine rate mistake has occurred, adding in this case, communication to the customer fell short of our usual standards. After GoPublic's questions, the travel site reversed course, saying it will honor Mann's original booking after all and reimburse her for the price difference after her stay. Mann says she's relieved, but getting help shouldn't require contacting the media.
You're basically left holding an empty bag.
Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Our GoPublic stories come from you. If you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. Black Friday deals are starting early as many Canadians try to stretch their cash.
If I were to get the same things as last year, it'd probably end up costing like $100 or like $200 more.
How stores are trying to earn your business. Will Donald Trump's tariffs hold up in court?
The question here is whether Congress has given over that power.
What the case could hinge on. And a town in India is sinking into the earth, leaving homes unsafe and families at risk.
There was no place to which we can move on and like stay.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Thousands lined the streets in downtown Toronto today for the city's annual Santa Claus parade. Marching bands and floats energized the crowds along the route. Last year, the parade faced a funding shortfall, but managed to stay afloat thanks to donations and government funding. Black Friday is still days away, but retailers have already been advertising discounts. As a tough year forces many Canadians to spend carefully on gifts, businesses feel the pressure. Jennifer LaGrassa shows us how they're angling for your dollars.
We're cutting our margins pretty deep on that one.
For the first time, this small business owner is offering a Black Friday sale, up to 50% off.
This is going to be like pretty big for us as a small business.
Such steep discounts likely won't fill her pockets, but she's hoping they get customers back in the door and product out.
The economy is not really great. People can't really afford things.
A year of high inflation and economic uncertainty means shoppers are on the lookout for savings this holiday season.
It's more expensive than last year. I'm going to take advantage of Black Friday.
So our budget is what we can afford to make sure we're not messing up with any of the other payments.
Even if I had the same budget, if I were to get the same things as last year, it'd probably end up costing like $100 or like $200 more.
The trade conflict also weighing heavy on consumers' wallets, with a recent Bank of Canada survey finding the uncertainty is dampening spending expectations.
The retailers that are going to win to draw those Canadians in more are those that have, really good deals, promotions.
And big box stores are listening, with some pushing steeper discounts than last year.
I think we've got great pricing and customers will find really exciting deals on a range of products.
And deals are still starting way before the official Black Friday.
We started off on November 3rd, just to kind of get them in a little bit earlier and let them shop kind of at their own pace.
For smaller shops, discounts might be doing the heavy lifting.
People are struggling paying their groceries, so coming to a place like ours, I feel like it is a luxury, like buying these little knickknacks.
But they're hoping that a desire to buy Canadian will also pay off. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Now let's break down the news shaping our world. A Himalayan town in India is slowly sinking, leaving homes condemned and vulnerable to collapse.
There was no place to which we can move on and like stay.
Why some say they're forced to endure the danger. But first,
a tariff
is a tax on a foreign country.
Donald Trump's tariffs face their biggest test yet.
Why would a rational Congress say, yeah, we're going to give the president the power to shut down trade?
The U.S. Supreme Court now left with a decision with huge implications in America and beyond. The central question facing the court, what are tariffs exactly? About that, host Andrew Chang digs deeper now into why the answer is so critical.
Donald Trump has what's called an expansive view of presidential power. Just a fancy way of saying he pushes the limits. And this becomes a legal issue when, for example, Trump uses the US military as domestic police, or carries out large-scale deportations, or makes wholesale structural cuts to the federal workforce. But when it comes to tariffs,
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
the Trumpiest of legal arguments that we've just heard at the highest level has to do with this. Call it the donut hole theory of presidential power. And I think we can use this to explain whether the highest court in the land believes Trump's tariffs are legal or go too far. Wipe your mind clean just for a second. Imagine you're at home. The US president walks into the room and says, I have an idea. Tariffs on all imports, all foreign goods that come into America. Your first reaction should be, what are you doing in my house? But your second reaction should be, you can't do that without Congress saying you can do it. That's because of a foundational clause in the US Constitution which says Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes and duties. And that's almost universally interpreted as meaning only Congress has that power, not the president, unless it's an emergency.
The question here is whether Congress has given over that power, delegated it to the executive branch in this statute, in the International Emergency Economic Powers Act.
Yes, Trump's legal case really hinges on this idea that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, which he has invoked, whether it allows him to undertake a huge range of actions against foreign powers. And it really is like a parade of actions. The president can investigate, block, regulate, direct and compel, nullify, void, prevent, or prohibit a great number of things, including any acquisition, holding, withholding, use, transfer, withdrawal, transportation, importation, or exportation of, or dealing in or exercising any right, power, or privilege. So he can do all these things with regard to a whole range of things, affecting this massive umbrella category of any property in which any foreign country or a national thereof has any interest. But let me simplify, because among this massive buffet of options, the power of the president that matters in this case, that he may regulate the importation of basically any property.
IEEPA confers major powers to address major problems on the president, who is perhaps the most major actor in the realm of foreign affairs.
Yes. Okay, but get to the donuts already. You may be shouting at your screen. Fine. So, in the Supreme Court hearing, Trump appointee Justice Brett Kavanaugh pointed out an odd donut hole. This idea that, isn't it a bit strange that IEEPA grants the president such sweeping powers, that's this delicious pastry, but that if he's not allowed to impose tariffs as part of those powers, that's kind of a gaping hole in the middle of things the president is supposed to be able to do. Like in this circle of presidential powers, you mean to tell me that we all agree the president can do such drastic things as ban all trade with a particular country, impose quotas, all kinds of things, but he or she can't even impose something as simple as a 1% tariff to achieve the same goal? Isn't that a very strange, almost arbitrary limitation on what should otherwise be a complete circle of presidential power?
Why would a rational Congress say, yeah, we're going to give the president the power to shut down trade? I mean, think about the effects. But you're admitting that power's in there.
Yeah.
But can't do a 1% tariff. That doesn't seem, but I want to get your answer, to have a lot of common sense behind it.
I think it absolutely does, because it's a fundamentally different power. It's not a donut hole. It's a different kind of pastry.
And on that power, that's a good one.
So as it turns out, Trump's tariffs in their current form may live or die on this question of whether we're talking about donuts or a different kind of pastry. Are they part of these broad IEEPA powers?
We don't contend that what's being exercised here is the power to tax. It's the power to regulate foreign commerce.
Or are they really just taxes?
Tariffs are taxes. They take dollars from Americans' pockets and deposit them in the U.S. Treasury. Our founders gave that taxing power to Congress alone. Yet here the president bypassed Congress and imposed one of the largest tax increases in our lifetimes.
What might seem tricky here for the Trump administration is that Trump himself has often used the words tariff and tax interchangeably.
A tariff is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No. It's a tax on a foreign country. It's a tax on a country that's ripping us off and stealing our jobs. And it's a tax that doesn't affect our country.
But set that aside, because Trump says all sorts of things that may not actually legally affect what the emergency powers statute allows him to do. Not impose taxes, per se, but the power to regulate imports.
These are regulatory tariffs. They are not revenue-raising tariffs. The fact that they raise revenue is only incidental. The tariffs would be most effective, so to speak, if no person ever paid them.
And this is an important point, because if you accept that these tariffs are more like regulatory foreign policy tools, a way to hurt countries, and not so much a form of domestic taxation, then not only might this feel like a legit emergency power according to the powers granted by IEEPA, it might also be something that very typically feels like a legit presidential power, regardless.
Generally speaking, there's more deference given to the president when the actions are in the realm of foreign affairs. Now, the power to tax and impose duties, that's with Congress. The power over foreign affairs, foreign relations, that's with the president.
Now, again, just as an aside, this might have felt like a stronger argument if the Trump administration wasn't constantly talking about the money side of tariffs.
So we're making $2 billion. This isn't 35 million, that's peanuts. $2 billion a day. Hundreds of billions of dollars of cash is pouring into our country now. I'll tell you where it came from. It came from a place called tariffs.
But have a listen to how the Supreme Court, both liberal and conservative-leaning justices, responded.
Yes, of course, tariffs and dealings with foreign powers, but the vehicle is imposition of taxes on Americans, and that has always been the core power of Congress.
Let me say two things in response to that. First, the notion that the taxes are all borne by Americans and are not borne by foreign producers whose goods are imported is empirically, there's no basis for that in the record. It's actually a mix.
Well, who pays the tariffs? If a tariff is imposed on automobiles, who pays them?
I just don't understand this argument. It's not an article. It's a congressional power, not a presidential power to tax. And you want to say tariffs are not taxes, but that's exactly what they are. They're generating money from American citizens, revenue.
And if we think again to just how much money the government has managed to raise through such a sweeping overhaul of the global economy, this begs another question. You know what's funny about all this parsing of language? Like, are tariffs about revenue or regulation? Are they more domestic or foreign-facing? What's funny is that the mere fact of having to do that kind of surgical dissection, by default, might work against Trump's tariffs.
Many doctrines explain why this is illegal, like the presumption that Congress speaks clearly when it imposes taxes and duties, and the major questions doctrine.
Yes, the major questions doctrine. It's this idea that when it comes to the really important stuff, decisions of vast economic or political significance, that the Supreme Court shall never simply assume Congress has handed the government some broad or novel power, unless it explicitly says it does. So, if in asking the question, did Congress clearly authorize this much power? The response is, well, technically, we can presume that they might have, because if we look at the use of the word regulate, we can think of this as blah, 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 blah. Then the court's supposed to say, whoa, I'll stop you right there. The answer is no.
It comes down to common sense. It's simply implausible that in enacting IEEPA, Congress handed the president the power to overhaul the entire tariff system and the American economy in the process, allowing him to set and reset tariffs on any and every product from any and every country at any and all times.
So scale matters here, right? It's estimated if the tariffs in place now are allowed to stand, that's $3 trillion in extra revenue by 2035, which might make this question of tariffs a major question. And the major questions doctrine has been invoked successfully where lesser amounts of money are involved. For example, when Joe Biden tried and failed to forgive $400 billion in student loans, citing the pandemic as a national emergency.
The justification is being used for a power to impose tariffs on any product from any country in any amount for any length of time. That seems like, I'm not suggesting it's not there, but it does seem like that's major authority, and the basis for the claim seems to be a misfit. So why doesn't it apply again?
Well, we agree that it's a major power, but it's in the context of a statute that is explicitly conferring major powers, that the point of the statute is to confer major powers to address major questions, which are emergencies. So it'd be unusual to say, look at the statute and say, we're not going to find a major power.
But then it gets into a bit of a circular argument because the question turns once again to why didn't the IEEPA legislation just use the word tariff if that's what it intended? And then you get into the Trump administration's argument that, well, it has a whole bunch of verbs and the word regulate includes tariff. Round and round we go.
So it has a lot of verbs, it has a lot of actions that can be taken under this statute. It just doesn't have the one you want.
At the end of the nearly 3-hour hearing, a majority of Supreme Court justices appeared skeptical about the legality of Trump's tariffs, which suggests they might, in a few weeks or months, ultimately decide to strike them down, as every lower court has done so far. If that happens, the Trump administration has already promised tariffs are here to stay, and there are other legal means to impose them. If the court upholds Trump's tariffs, though, that is a power that once given may be very difficult to claw back.
While a decision isn't expected for weeks, even months, rising food prices have already triggered changes. Thursday, Trump rolled back tariffs on some goods, including coffee and beef. Coming up, an Indian town already struck by disaster is now at greater risk because of climate change.
Unless there is a proper drainage pattern, the vulnerability of the soil will increase.
Why some are staying despite the danger. Next. Despite the ground sinking beneath them and the risk that poses, thousands in the Indian town of Joshimath are staying put.
We have no background support, financial support.
South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji traveled to look at why it's happening and how it's affecting those living there.
Tucked deep in the Indian Himalayas, clinging to this steep hillside more than 1,800 meters high, Joshimath is vulnerable. Its unstable soil buckling as the small town slowly sinks. Large cracks scar many streets where hundreds of houses are crumbling. Abhishek Natyal and his family still live in their home, considered structurally unsound, condemned by a red X mark.
You can see here. You can feel it.
Oh, you tried to cover it.
Yeah.
Attempts at patching the cracks only partially successful. They were ordered to leave when things came to a head in Joshimath in 2023. More than 800 buildings evacuated after the town suddenly dropped 5 centimeters in less than 2 weeks. And up along there as well.
Yeah.
But Abhishek and his family came back after a few months, rejecting an offer of compensation from the government to move permanently.
I was very scared. There was no place to which we can move on and stay. We have no background support, financial support.
The trauma and uncertainty a constant in Joshimath.
The town is built on loose debris from a centuries-old landslide and a receding glacier. It's also cursed with a drainage system that struggles to clear excess water, seeping into the already wobbly soil under these homes. The red marks are everywhere in this neighborhood, ignored for the most part. Durga rents this small home even with its deep cracks because she has few other options. We're scared, she says. When it rains heavily, the cracks widen. Where will I take my children, she asks. These crevices are even deeper now after monsoon season battered the town this year. A changing climate exacerbating Joshimat's weak soil. The ecologically fragile Himalayas, the world's tallest mountain range, warming faster than any other. Glacial lakes overflowing and more frequent cloudbursts of sudden torrential rain over a short time and space risk crushing entire mountain villages like the Raleigh, not far from Joshimath, where a deadly flood was captured on video this summer.
The pattern of precipitation is changing. Unless there is a proper drainage pattern, the vulnerability of the soil will increase.
For many here in a town slowly sinking, it's the aggressive and unchecked construction surrounding the area already so fragile that's making matters even worse.
The route in and out of town is busy and getting more so, with roads being carved out and widened. Joshimath is at the heart of a pilgrimage route for millions of Hindus, where rivers meet to become the holy Ganges. The region also a hotspot for new hydroelectric dams to harness the power of the mountains and meet India's growing electricity needs.
So 1 kilometer from this place.
This activist and others in Joshimath blame one particular project, very close to town, even though a government study dating as far back as 1976 called for a ban on all construction in Joshimath because of the collapsing soil.
That tunnel is going through underneath the Joshimath. And while building a tunnel, they are using heavy blast. We think that is the main cause.
Many in the small town are resigned to it, that the government, which has pledged funds to try to stop the sinking, won't find a quick fix. Sashi Sundaryal takes it all in stride. The owners are letting me stay here rent-free, she says, so I'll live with the cracks. In the precarious town in the hills that won't stop sinking, its future uncertain.
A recent study published in the scientific journal Nature suggests parts of India's largest cities, including Delhi and Mumbai, are also slowly sinking. And if the current trend continues, people and buildings could be at risk within the next 50 years. Coming up, an unexpected venue for a party.
I was kind of taken aback because I was like, well, it's a party at a grocery store. How fun can it be?
A supermarket turned dance floor next in our moment. You're looking at a dance floor inside a Filipino-Canadian supermarket called Seafood City. It was part of a series of events held in Manitoba, Alberta, and Ontario. They called it Late Night Madness, and it seems to have lived up to that name. So tonight, the grocery store dance party makes our moment.
I was kind of taken aback because I was like, well, it's a party at a grocery store. How fun can it be? There was a huge lineup. So obviously lots of people were really, really interested in going. And when I got there, it was exactly like a Filipino celebration that I got to experience growing up with friends and family. So what we would do is we would gather, we would feast, and there would be so many different performances for arts. Somebody was singing karaoke. A few minutes later, there were Zumba dances that were starting, and the smell of food kind of caught my attention right away. It was near the end of sort of my night. There was dancing, and people started doing like the Macarena, and I was like, oh, I love the Macarena. I'm gonna dance. And so I went on the dance floor. It was really, really unique. I never thought that I would have so much fun partying at a grocery store.
Trying to imagine what kind of party my neighborhood supermarket would manage to pull off. She said everything was so authentic there. You heard her mention food. She said there was Filipino street food that was so on point. She took it home to her mom, who found it made her nostalgic for home. From all of us here at The National, thanks for being with us. I'm Ian Hannah-Mansing in Vancouver. You can join me on CBC News Network weeknights at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. See you then.